It was, I came to Detroit for the first time for a conference in 1945. And it was so segregated that I was at a conference with radicals, union people. There was a black woman in our delegation from New York. And when the white folks wanted to go to lunch downtown at the Brass Rail. And they said to her name was Mary, we'll have to drop you off on Brush because they don't serve black people downtown. That's how segregated it was. It was up south. The Public Accommodations Act wasn't passed until 1949. And even then, the NAACP, including people like my husband and Arthur Johnson, who's now one of the members of the Board of Governors at Wayne State University, had to sit in at coffee joints on Woodward Avenue and call the police before they'd be served. That was 1945. I came back here to live in 1953. I sublet an apartment from a friend of ours, a comrade actually, on 14th Street in Blaine. If you know, that's real inner city.
Mm-hmm.
Blacks were allowed to buy houses on Blaine. They were not allowed to live in the apartments. And when Jimmy visited me, we were evicted. That's 1953. But things were beginning to happen. The freeways are already being built, and so the whites could leave by the freeways. The population was beginning to turn black, and so they began to open up the apartments at twice the rent to blacks. The population was 2 million. The technology was already being introduced into the plant, so that it was getting harder for people to get jobs. But Detroit thought it was doing fine. They thought it was really doing fine. And yet the changes were beginning to take place. The high tech was removing jobs. For folks moving to the suburbs meant depopulation, de-investment, and the deindustrialization was already beginning. This is 1953. Jimmy and I moved into an apartment over here on the east side. Whites had been paying $40 a month. We had to pay $62.50 a month. It was amazing. I mean, folks find it hard to believe, and that was really the origins of the Black Power movement, because as blacks began to become the majority and whites the minority, it became insufferable that everything should be run by whites, that the school board should be run by the all-white, that the cops would be an occupation army. And so it was that what started it was that this Black Power movement started as a very simple movement that we wanted to have representation comparable with our numbers. But what would happen was that young people who were being displaced by the high tech, would get, and also at the same time being harassed by the cops, just blew up. And they blew up in 1967, burnt down most of Linwood Avenue, where the mosque and the Shrine of the Black Madonna and the New Bethel Church were, and still are, as a matter of fact. The shrine wasn't called that then. And so people blame the destruction of Detroit on 67. But all these things were happening
Long before.
which led to the eruption, which led to the explosion. And it's very interesting. I was writing a letter this morning and saying that an event like 67 requires a whole lot of reflection. And an event like the election of Obama also requires a lot of reflection. It's not a simple thing. It's a very historic thing that's happening here. And there's a lot of confusion as to its meaning. And it's going to take a lot of thought. And I think that's what has distinguished the work that Jimmy and I have tried to do. We tried to be participating in what's taking place, because we were both very active in the Black Power movement. But we have also realized that when you participate, when you get involved in struggle, a lot of things happen, and you need to reflect on the consequences of your action.